São Paulo is a modern South American metropolis of over 8 million people. Recent years have brought tremendous commercial and residential growth, making it a center for much of Brazil's business and trade activity. The crowded, busy streets, lined with tall buildings, give São Paulo that look familiar to modern urban areas. As in other cities, the skyline is dominated by high-rise buildings. These skyscrapers are the concrete expressions of modern technology and commerce. But they're not simply monuments. They are environments. Every day, hundreds of thousands of people in São Paulo, millions throughout the world, live and work in these vertical cities. The safety of those people depends upon these structures and their contents. Across from São Paulo City Hall stands the 2-year-old, 25-story Joelma Building. The Crefisa Group, an investment company, occupied the entire building with offices for its 1,000 employees. Friday morning, the 1st of February, 1974, 756 employees were inside when a fire started. Beginning in a 12th floor office, the fire moved quite rapidly through the building. The fire was discovered at 8:50 in the morning. The fire department was notified by the occupant of an adjacent building some 15 minutes later. The first fire units arrived at about 10 minutes after 9. They immediately called for assistance. The additional units were delayed by morning traffic and did not arrive until about 9:30. By then, flames reached nearly to the roof. There were 12 pumpers, 3 aerial ladders, an elevating platform, and 300 firefighters at the scene. First attempts by firefighters to enter the building by the central stairway were halted at the 11th floor. Dense smoke and intense heat made it impossible for them to go further. Heat and smoke also turned away helicopters trying to reach the 171 people trapped on the roof. Firefighters then worked from the street with master stream appliances and the elevating platform. The 144-foot ladders were raised in an attempt to rescue people stranded on ledges. But their reach, at best, was only to the 15th floor. By 10:30, the fire had subsided. In less than 2 hours, it had consumed all combustibles and burned out. Rescue and medical teams were then able to enter the building. The Joelma Building is 25 stories of reinforced concrete located at the intersection of 2 major streets. To accommodate this site, the 2-year-old building has a rather unusual shape. It has 2 roof areas, with the elevator penthouse rising in between. This central core contains 4 elevators and a single open stairway which runs the full height of the structure. The elevators and stairway provide the only access to the interior of the building. The roofs, north and south, are simply unfinished floor slabs, the owner intending to add several more stories at some later date. To allow for water drainage, a peaked wooden superstructure was built and corrugated concrete tiles laid on top. The first 10 floors are a parking garage. The top 15 are business offices. building's exterior consists of a curtain wall, hollow tile faced with concrete plaster, into which the aluminum frame windows were set. Between floors, a spandrel of 3 feet is formed by this curtain wall. The reinforced concrete floor slabs extend about 3 feet beyond the curtain wall and intersect the vertical sun screen, which shades the interior from direct light. Before the fire, the office interiors were divided by wooden partitions. The desks and shelves were wood, the ceilings were cellulose fiber tiles attached to wood strapping. The drapes, carpeting, and other fabrics were all flammable. At the time of the fire, then, the Joelma Building was a fire-resistive, reinforced concrete shell which had been filled inside with combustible materials. The air conditioner in this window on the 12th floor required a circuit breaker different from the kind needed by the other units. At the time of installation, none was available, so in order to use the machine, it was installed bypassing the electrical control panel for the floor. The fire started here. It caught quickly and spread rapidly. Beginning in a window on the north side of the 12th floor, the flames moved in 2 directions. Racing across the ceiling and carpet, they reached the central stairwell and shot upward. The fire didn't extend up the stairs much further than the 15th floor because of a lack of fuel in the stairwell. It did, however, fill the well with smoke and heat, which made it impassable. Simultaneous with this internal spread, the flames were reaching up the exterior of the building. The 13th floor was as yet unfinished and unoccupied on the north side. Few combustibles were present. The fire rose to the 14th floor, where heat and flames broke through the windows, igniting the interior. While it continued its climb up the exterior of the north side, reaching higher and higher as each floor added more fuel, the fire also traveled across the 14th floor and into the south tower. There, too, it shot out the windows. The flames were now moving rapidly up both sides of the building. Less than an hour after it had begun, the fire had spread throughout the top 14 floors. Crefisul employees were in the office towers when the fire started. Quite early in the fire, some 300 had been evacuated from the upper floors by elevator. The 4 elevator operators were able to make only a few trips, however, before heat and smoke within the building became too intense for them to continue. For those people remaining, the Joelma Building offered little safety. It had no emergency lighting, alarm, or sprinkler systems. The one stairwell was an inadequate and unsafe exit. No plans for evacuation had been made in the event of a fire emergency. Many people used the stairway to get out onto the roofs, where they hoped to be evacuated by helicopters. 2 years before in São Paulo, 300 people had been saved in another high-rise building fire. Their rescue was effected from the heliport on the building's roof. The people on the Joelma roofs felt that helicopter rescue might be possible for them as well. It wasn't. There was no place on the roof clear enough and large enough for helicopters to land. Even if there had been, the dense smoke and strong thermal column made approaching the building by air too hazardous, and rescues could not be effected until well after the fire was out. Of the 171 people who went to the roofs, only 81 survived. All 60 on the south side were found dead. On the north side, some people had crawled under the tiles of the drainage roof and were shielded from the heat. They alone were found alive. Other people in the building had gone to the bathrooms, where they desperately doused themselves with water. As the fire progressed, these rooms filled with smoke. People inside were overcome, and they died. But some had climbed onto the ledges outside and were able to get air while being protected from the heat and flames. Several people lowered themselves from floor to floor and eventually made it to the aerial ladders. Most, however, remained where they were and could not be reached until after the fire was out. 41 people were rescued over ladders. continued threat of fire was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, for those people trapped inside. Fearing that rescue would come too late or not at all, desperate, they jumped. People on the ground waved to them to stay where they were. They held up signs saying, "Remain calm. The fire is out." Still they jumped, hoping to grab a ladder or survive the fall. None of them did survive. 40 people died this way, 30 of them after the fire was already out. After the Joelma Building had been searched, authorities found that 179 people had died. This was the greatest loss of life in any high-rise building fire. United States codes and standards generally would not permit conditions that would lead to a tragedy such as this. Though the building itself was fire-resistive, the building's interior partitions and ceilings were combustible. A fire was not necessarily inevitable in this situation, but it was certain that once a fire began, rapidly, nothing was there to stop it. No sprinkler system had been installed. No compartmental designing had been done. The fire department was ineffective in subduing the fire because of a late alarm, the rapid spread of the fire, the distance of the fire from the ground, and their inability to gain access to the building. There was no automatic detection and alarm system to notify the fire department. Firefighters, arriving only 5 minutes after notification, about 20 minutes after the fire was first discovered, found the stairwell filled with smoke and the elevators unusable. Their attack from the street was limited because the fire had already spread from the 12th to the 16th story. The protection must be built into a high-rise building. The potential loss of life is very great in such a structure and increases dramatically with every story. For the occupants of such a building, the only thing between safety and tragedy in a fire situation is the existence and enforcement of adequate local standards and codes. If occupants have no way out of the building, but also no place safe inside, they're trapped. If systems and materials within the building are not holding down the fire spread until the fire department can get there, then the situation may be too far advanced when they do arrive. Such was the case in São Paulo on February 1st, 1974, and 179 people died.